Hello, YouTube. Be sure and hit that like and subscribe button and notification bell so that when we have a new video that comes out, you'll be the first to get a hold of it. Okay, I'll tell you what, I got a good subject I want to deal with today. There's something that you need to be hating. God commands you to hate. And so we're going to talk about that. Let's go up in front of the fireplace. All right. There's a passage here in the book of Amos that tells us what we need to hate and what we need to love. You know, everybody hates something and loves something. You can't love without hating. You can't hate without loving. Both of them go together. We live in a time when there's kind of a leveling out of hate and love to where people are basically neutered in their moral choices and responses. Listen to what it says. This is in Amos chapter 5, verse 15. Hate the evil and love the good, and establish judgment in the gate. Hate the evil and love the good. So let's look at that a little further. Okay, now here's a passage in Isaiah chapter 5, verse 20 that goes with this. It said, woe unto them that call evil good and good evil. Let me ask you, when you look at the news today, do you find people calling evil good and calling good evil? That put darkness for light and light for darkness. I'm not going to give any examples or illustrations. You know them, because if I did, they might take me off of YouTube. That put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. Okay, and now back to Amos chapter 5, verse 10. They hate him that rebuketh in the gate, and that abhorreth him that speaketh uprightly. That's the day in which we live, that people hate those that rebuke in the gate. The gate was where the leaders sat, where judgments were made. If people had an issue they wanted settled, were seeking equity in some way or judgment, they would come to the gate. And they said they hate him that rebuketh in the gate. In other words, when the judge made a decision that was based on truth and righteousness, they hated it. And they abhor him that speaketh uprightly. And we live in that time, I'll tell you what. Seek good and not evil, that you may live. Oh, wow. Hate the evil, love the good, and establish judgment. Now, the Bible talks a lot about judgment, a whole lot about judgment. Judge righteous judgment. Now, what is judgment? Most people think of judgment as being judgmental. It's not. First, it's wrong to be judgmental. But to pass judgment, we all do it. The darkest, most diabolical people pass judgment on people that pass judgment on them. Everybody passes judgment. It's just a matter of what you value, what you don't value. If you value evil, then you will pass judgment on righteousness. If you value righteousness, you'll pass judgment on evil. Now, that doesn't mean we need to go around with a chip on our shoulder pointing everything out. That's not going to be cool. But it does mean that as far as our personal life is concerned, we need to make strong judgments about right and wrong and be an example of adhering to the right. Seek good. Seek it for yourself, not for everybody else. Stay out of everybody else's affair. Seek good and not evil, that you may live. And he said, hate evil, love the good, and establish judgment. Establish judgment. There is no judgment in our courts today. The judgment in our courts today are based on fallacious laws. They're based on psychology and shrewd lawyers and deception and lousy precedents. But that's the world you live in. So, you know, the way you beat all that is you just be bigger than everything else. You just live the big life. Live the full life. Live the rich life. Live in grace and forgiveness. Know what is evil. Know what is good. Take your stand for yourself first. Woe unto you, he said, that desire the day of the Lord. For what end is it for you? The day of the Lord is darkness and not light. We live in a time, this is continuing there in Amos, we live in a time when people are anxious. YouTube is full of predictions of the end of the world, the great apocalypse, the second coming, the tribulation. And people act like it's going to be the circus coming to town. They act like it's going to be a wonderful thing. He said, woe unto you that desire the day of the Lord.
for it's a day of darkness and not light. So this is very current. He said, as if a man did flee from a lion, a bear met him, or went to his house, leaned his hand on the wall, and a serpent bit him. I hate to see the warmongers today, people that want a revolution, they want succession, they want to fight. They're kind of, I won't say that word, but they're ticked off, and they're bitter, and they've got enemies, and they want to put them down. That's not going to come to a good end, folks. Not going to come to a good end at all. Shall not the day of the Lord be darkness and not light, even every dark and no brightness in it? He said, listen, when the time comes toward the end, it's going to be dark. There won't be any light in it. So don't expect a revival of anything but darkness and evil. And then another passage where God says, I despise your feast days. This is verse 21. I will not smell in your solemn assembly. So God said he hates the church. This was the Israeli church at the time, church in Israel, which was, of course, Jewish. But he said, I despise your feast days. I will not smell in your solemn assemblies. So he said, you're burning candles, you're burning incense, your sacrifices you offer. He said, it all stinks to me. And yet God instituted those things. He said, I despise it when you come together with your feast. And these were feasts God ordained. That reminds me of the passage in 1 Corinthians 11:17. Now in this that I declare unto you, I praise you not that you come together, not for the better, but for the worse. So he said, the church at Corinth, he said, when you meet, you'd be better off not to meet. He said, when you come together for the worse. Most churches today would be better if they didn't exist. When people come together, what they're doing is they're teaching them that good is evil and evil is good, and they're neutering their judgments, and they're causing them to be tolerant of sin in their own lives and in the world at large. He said, though you offer me burnt offerings and your meat offerings, I will not accept them. Neither will I regard the peace offerings of your fat beast. In other words, God rejects your gifts. I reject your tithes. I reject your offerings. I reject the sacrifices you make in my name. He said, I don't want it. Take thou away from me the noise of thy songs, for I'll not hear the melody of thy vows. God said, I'm fed up with your worship music. I'm fed up with your singing and your hymns. You come and you lift your hands and you rock it to the music. He said, I hate it. I don't want to hear it. I don't come and listen to what you've got to say. Why? Because you've left off judgment. Because you call good evil and evil good. So I'll have nothing to do with it. So God refuses to join the worship service. Finally, but let judgment run down as waters, and righteousness as a mighty stream. That's God's command back then to Israel, and it's his command today. Let judgment run down as waters. Preachers don't need to stand in the pulpit and judge the world at large. They don't need to stand there and talk about the homosexuals or the liberals or George Soros or whoever else. They don't need to be doing that. What the preachers need to do is stand in the pulpit and talk about the sins of the people sitting in the congregation. He needs to point out the evil that we as a people are doing. Now, I guarantee you, if a preacher preached accurately this next Sunday morning, there would only be 10% as many people in church the next week if all the preachers preached judgment. But let judgment run down as waters and righteousness as a mighty stream. Now, I don't know how to get this across, but most people, righteousness and judgment is a tool they use against other people. Most preachers, they use that as a tool, and that's not the way. It's supposed to be something. It's a mirror that we look in. You look in your own mirror and see your own sin, see your own need for judgment. You clean up, get the beam out of your eye, and then you'll be able to see clearly to get the speck out of your neighbor's eye. But we got to get our hating and our loving right. We got to start loving righteousness. And when you watch something on TV, do you love righteousness and hate iniquity? Can you watch that which is evil and wicked and be entertained by it? Love righteousness and hate iniquity. Okay, I'm going to stop there. So that's about it for today, and see you again next time.